Let's go ahead and talk about how we can build a monthly overview page in Notion. So this is going to be something that stems from the basic Notion concept of relations, right? So this is what we're building is going to look like. It's going to look like July 2024, right? That's the month that we're creating this card for. It's going to be replicated across all months. We're going to have some type of formula here that tells us, oh, this is going to be expenses, right? Expenses for the month of July, and they're going to be listed like that. And then we're also going to have some type of task tracking, right? So we're going to say 30 out of 50 tasks completed, right? And say finally we have some sort of habit tracking for journaling, where we have journaling and we say 20 out of 30 entries written, right? So the point of this card, or a card like this, is to give you a generic overview in your dashboard of what kind of progress you're looking at for the month. The problem with this, especially for me, is that for this monthly overview, you have to have a lot of relations in place. And that's not necessarily possible without automations, right? So let's go ahead and take a look and break this down, right? So we have our expenses database, right? We have a bunch of different expenses. Let's say we have 3 that are in the month of July, right? So this is going to be the 28th, this is going to be the 21st, this is going to be the 14th. How we get this value over here for these expenses is going to be by individually linking these expenses to the month of July. In Notion, though, you're able to do this with automations, and that's kind of what I want to cover in this video. So think about how you would proceed to do this, say if you were entering your expenses in. So I have an expense that's going to be $28, and it's going to be for the month of July, and say it's groceries, right? So we have that little tag, that's for groceries, and we have that price, right? So to manually link this to the monthly overview, we're going to have to go ahead and say, okay, now I'm going to go ahead and open up the relations box, and I'm going to select the month of July 2024. And that is essentially what we're doing inside this single expense page. But what we want to do is a little bit more automated than having to manually link this, because what does that look like? That looks like me adding a new page and then me manually trying to find July 2024 for each page that I add. Say I have 300 expenses in line items for a month. That's 300 times like 3 extra clicks that we're looking to find this July 2024 and add it as a relation. And that can be turned into 0, right? We can erase this from our manual clicking and we can turn it into 0. So how are we going to go ahead and do that? All right, so let's go ahead and expand upon this. I'm going to go ahead and create a new page to work inside, and I'm going to go ahead and leave it as a regular page. I'm going to call this automatic month because that is what I refer to this as when I work within Notion. So the first thing I'm going to go ahead and do, and this is a best practice that I recommend for everybody, is have a place where you can store all your databases, right? So I'm going to create a little backend page. What does that look like? It's just a little page inside this. I sometimes like to change this to have a gear icon or something of that sort, just so people know that it's backend. And then I've done a lot of different things to tell people that it's backend, from having callouts that say do not touch, or just hiding it somewhere inside the page. All right, so we have about 3 databases that we need to create, or 4, I guess. So the first one is going to be months, right? So we already know that. I like to do this because I don't like seeing that table view there. And then for this, we're mainly going to need 3 things. The first thing we're going to need is a date property, and I'm just going to say start date, and that's just going to be the first of that month, right? So these months are going to be automatically created through recurrences over here, and it'll just be the first of that month that these will be created. Next thing that we're going to do is go ahead and figure out what the month number is, and instead of using a number that we have to manually type in, we're going to use a formula. And this formula is going to be based off of this start date that we have right here. So this is going to be called current month. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and figure out, so let's go ahead and add in some samples here. So this is going to be July 2024. The start date for that is going to be July 1st. And with Notion, there is the possibility to just like type stuff in. And especially with the month property, I've seen that if you type like simpler things in, it usually figures out what date you're talking about, and then you can just change things. So instead of having to scroll through and find July 2024, I'm just going to type in July 2024 and see, or July 1st, and see if it pops up. Right? Current month, what are we going to do? So this is going to be based off of the start date, right? And this is checking whether or not this is the current month. Let's go ahead and break it down, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to format this date, right? So I'm going to format the start date, and I'm going to format it by using MMDDDD, or just MM actually, Y. So this essentially tells me what month we're looking at. So that's July 2024. I'm also going to do MMMM because I want it to look like the name right here, right? What does this tell us, right? This is the month, this is the year. We're not going to have duplicates of a month-year combination because there's only one July 2024, right? There's only one July 2025. That's why I included the year, because if it's just July or just July 1st, that doesn't give me enough information for it to be not duplicated, right? Then I'm going to compare this to right now, right? So let's go ahead and format the date again. And this we're going to format now, all right? And we're going to format it in the exact same way. And essentially what we're doing right now is we're comparing the two strings. We're comparing the two words that'll pop up, and we're seeing if they're equal. So this is not true right now because it is not July 2024. It is actually October 2024. So let's go ahead and also take a look at what this looks like. So right now, if I remove this, it'll say October 2024. I'm going to bring this back, and I'm going to go ahead and save this property. And then, just for fun, I'm going to create October 2024, and I'm going to create the start date as October 1st, 2024. And that is a current month property being checked right there. So this is all I really need to be able to create that month relationship that I showcased earlier, right? So let's go ahead and create the other databases and link them to months. All right, now I'm back with the second database that we're creating, and that is based on my diagram. Let's do expenses, right? Let's do something simple. So I'm just going to call it finances, call it expenses, and we're going to do all expenses. And what are we going to need here? We're going to need a name. Let's say date, perhaps. That is not a date property. Expense date. Let's delete this. And we're going to link it back. So we're going to link it to months. Relation, months, show on months, expenses, right? And I'm just going to do singular. I'm going to limit it to one page because I don't want multiple months to be linked to one expense. What else would I possibly need? Oh, price. Okay, so I'm going to also do amount, and that should be everything. And then I'm going to change this to US dollar because it's going to be dollars. Okay, let's do an example one. So let's say dry cleaner. I don't know how much a dry cleaner costs. Let's say 20 bucks. Let's link it to July 2024, and let's go ahead and choose July. Okay, didn't like that. Okay, we'll just say middle of July somewhere, right? So this is a simple thing. It doesn't look like I need anything else. And then to clean this up, I'm gonna go ahead and group by month because that I just prefer like having a clean thing in the back end as well. All right, so that's everything we're gonna need for expenses, and I will be able to set up automations in a second, but I'm just going to leave it at this for now. So this is all we really need for this month property, right? All right, Next, instead of creating the other two databases right now, I'm going to go ahead and move into the front end so that we can see what we're dealing with. So earlier I was talking about the structure that I wanted to see, so I'm going to go ahead and do 2 columns. Yeah, that seems about right. And then do a link database. Months. Okay, months, and then I want a gallery view of months. Don't show database title, and then I want it to be the current month, but we're just gonna look at both of them right now. Then I'm gonna remove card preview, none. Okay, so this is gonna be done, and then I'm just gonna name it empty so it stays empty. All right, so right here, I want to start creating my property. So, and then with layouts, this changes as well since layouts was just released. So I'm going to change expenses to minimal, and I'm going to change current month, and start date can stay here. I'm going to create a couple of properties groups. So first thing I'm going to do is create a text property, which is just going to be something that's simple that I can see in the like that main monthly overview page, right? So I'm just going to call it expenses label, and I'm going to go ahead and name this expenses, right? And this is something that I want to put in the template for months because that is going to be something that should stay the same for all months, and I want it to automatically populate. For example, if I create a new month, it's going to go ahead and automatically populate here, but if I hadn't done that, it wouldn't have automatically populated, right? So for like October, it's not there. But what I would do if I put this if I apply this template, it'll go ahead and pop up right there. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and customize the layout, see what I want. I'm actually going to add a couple of properties first, so let's exit out of this. So expenses label, and then I'm going to go ahead and do all my labels right now because I don't want to deal with that later. All right, edit, labels, text. So we're doing the task tracking label, and this is all based on, I'll probably put it on screen later, but this is all going to be based on that blueprint that I kind of drew out earlier. This again is going to be like task completion. You can change it to anything you want, it doesn't really matter. And then I usually do I usually bold these because I just like how it looks better in the actual overview. And then I'm also going to do journaling, also text property, and it's going to be journals completed, and this is actually a label as well. I'm making sure to tag these as labels because if they're not tagged as labels, when I go and create the formula that's going to be named basically the same thing, it's going to duplicate, right? So here we have these, right? Next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and create the formula for those expenses. So expenses, expenses formula, what can you call that? Doesn't matter. And then maybe I'll call it a label, or let's just call it total expense amount. This can also be a relation. I just hate relations because they're not formulas, and you can't just go in and edit it and turn it'll take a bit of like finagling to turn it into a formula. So I just go ahead and do a formula because if I want to change it later, I can just change it inside the formula. All right, expenses, and we're gonna map expenses. Mapping just means give me all the expenses, and I want to do current dot amount, and we're gonna get nothing, and then we're gonna do sum. This is basically a relation or a roll up. Sorry, a roll up that adds all these together, and then you're going to go ahead and make sure that this is also in USD because it's not going to automatically do that for you. Okay, great. So now we have expenses and this, and I'm going to go ahead and put all of these in their own little, I'm actually going to duplicate this. Okay, let's duplicate this, and we're going to rename it task completion formula, and it's not going to be in USD, and then we're also going to have another one that's going to be journals written formula. Be as verbose as you want for this because it's going to be helpful later on when you're like, what the hell is this? Why is this formula here? You're going to know why it's there. Okay, so all of this stuff I don't want to see, and that is why layouts is amazing. I'm going to go ahead and customize the layout. I'm going to create a new property group. How the hell do you create a property? Sorry, I'm new to this as well because that's not right. I don't want to do that as well. Okay, I don't care about any of these actually. So, add section, great. Okay, new section is going to be called formulas and labels. Let's use pluses are prettier. Okay, formulas and labels, done. What goes inside formulas and labels? All of these, except for, and we're going to add a new section, which is called on screen. I'm going to go ahead and change all this later, but on screen. Done. Okay. What do we want on screen? Maybe start date, maybe current month, and then expenses need to be moved into their own group, which, how the hell do you do that? Oh, okay, I know. Okay, you click this, and then you click expenses, and then you change this to a advanced convert to relations group. Okay, and then on top of all of that, you can go ahead and change it to minimal. It's so annoying. I hate it. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and, what is happening here? Okay, wait. So here you can add the on-screen property, which is, where is it? What are start date and, oh, I know what this is. Okay, wait. I don't want this. Go away. Okay, yeah, details. Great. So this is cute and sweet. I have all this information here, and I'm going to go ahead and use that in my actual months view on the calendar, or on automatic month. So what do we want to see? We want to see a lot of stuff. We want to see the expenses label. We want to see the expenses formula. We want to see the task label. We want to see the task formula. We want to see, we want to see the journals label, and we want to see the journals formula. The reason these aren't populating is because they are not. They don't have the template. Okay, so this is simple, quick and easy, and we can see what we're looking at, right? And then say, for example, you want, like, for expenses, if you had some type of goal for those expenses, you could go ahead and also change this into some kind of bar. Say I want to spend like $500 a month. Okay. $500 a month, and you can have that as a bar like that, right? So here we have 20 bucks is not that much compared to your $500 goal, and you can see that right here. Right, so we kind of reached our goal of creating these thingies, but how do we automatically assign them? And for that, let me also bring up expenses over here. Let's do a list because those are nice and easy. No. Okay, and then also show me the amount, maybe the date. That's too much. Okay, great. And then also, since this needs to be set as well, and these layouts can be cleaned up later, but what is this? Okay, date is going to be today, no matter what. So if I add a new one, that date is automatically going to be today. We're going to call it cat. And let's say you got a new cat, right? And it was 150 bucks. That's an expensive cat. So essentially what happens is that every time we have a new page added here, I want to go ahead and automatically link it to the current month, right? And how do I know it's the current month? Well, look at that handy dandy property I have over here that tells me it's the current month, right? So how do I do that with a button versus how do I do it with automations? Because it can be done with both of them, right? I'm going to create a button where it does the same thing that an automation does, but add page to expenses, and today date is going to be the date triggered, and then I don't really care about the name. We don't worry about that. Add action. Okay. Then what we're going to do is we are going to edit pages in. We're going to edit pages in months. We're not going to edit all pages. We're going to edit the one that's current is checked, right? So we're going to edit that current month, and we are going to edit the property where it says expenses, and we're going to add the page that we added right now. What does that do? Okay, so this button doesn't have a name, and we're going to call it add expense, right? And I'm just going to add a little plus here, right? So add expense. This is what we're going to force ourselves to use because we're poor and don't have the plus money, right? So what does that mean? We're going to go ahead and click add an expense. And this one specifically, I'm going to actually manually change it to this. Okay, so this is exactly what I was talking about, right? I choose the date and then I choose the month. I know it's October 2024, so I have to choose it. If there's a million months in months, I'm going to have to search that up, right? So that's more clicking and more annoyances that I don't want to do because I want it to be automated. That is what this button does, right? Add an expense, call it whatever you want, right? Let's go ahead, open it up, and let's call it new expense. And annoyingly, this isn't working. Oh my god, it worked. Beautiful. Great. So it worked, right? And we're happy. Wonderful news. And it's going to be 20 bucks, and that gets added to our expenses for October. And that's how that works, right? So if you are not on the plus plan, you can still do this, but it's going to be through a button instead of through an automation. And that's going to be the same thing for tests that you're adding, and it's going to be the same thing for journals that you're completing. One thing to keep in mind is that this concept doesn't really work the best cross month, right? So I have a massive ledger that I'm working with this, and if I want to change this month to November, right? Then I'm going to have to go ahead and change the actual month manually. But that reduces the amount of manual calculations that we're going to be doing by a lot. And then once it's that like one small thing, I am not too worried about changing it myself because I know that eventually Notion will come up with something to fix that problem, but it might be a long way coming, right? Basically, what do we have to do, right? So let's write that down. So one is we have to create tasks and journals, right? And two, we're going to have to update the formulas on month. And then also this involves relations to month. And then the third thing we're going to have to do is create buttons to add to link automatically the tasks and the journals to the given month. And honestly, this makes more sense for journals than tasks because say I'm like from October 1st or October 31st, I move the task due date to kind of like a sprint, right? So when I'm moving the task due date to November 1st, I want the linkage to go to November 1st, right? So I want this to no longer be 20 out of 20 tasks for October 31st. I want it to be 1 out of 1 task for November. But I'll go ahead and show you how that works and show you the limitations because that's another extremely important thing, which is figuring out the limitations that Notion has when you're creating stuff like this. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump into that. And I'm going to go ahead and duplicate it and then link it so that you guys can actually use this as a tutorial to work on. And then I'll also go ahead and link the finished version with design stuff because I know design stuff is also important. All right, so I hope you did all these things, and I did not do any of these things because I'm going to go through it right now. So the first thing we're going to do is create tasks and journals. So we're going to jump into the back end. I'm going to create tasks, tasks, and let's name this all tasks. What do we need for tasks? I'm just going to do a checkbox for due date, and then let's do due date, I guess it's relevant. And then we're gonna do one more thing, which is, okay, so every time I have a task, this is something I like to do, and instead of having the checkbox be the main method of completion, I like having a done button. Ever since database buttons were released, I have always used done buttons because I hate, what the hell just happened? Due date, name, oh, is that correct? Okay, wait. Okay, what does this do? Oh, what is this? Okay, anyway, ooh, I have a great idea. Okay, wait. So I'm gonna, what is this supposed to do? Okay, add a property, checkbox, checked. Okay, we don't really need a custom button. There's just so much changing right now. Okay, so what does this done button do? It's just a button that says done, and it tells you that this task is completed, task, and then we have due date, and we have it today, and done, done. Great, we know how that works, right? Don't really need much else. I would say a template to make the due date today would make sense. But yeah, that's all we really need. Make sure to make these default. I know that I've not set it as default, and I'm just like, why isn't it working? Make it default. Okay, we're gonna, and then something I like to do, which is a little bit overkill, is have a button that lets me mark things as not done, because I don't like, well, I guess in this case it's pretty easy. Done, done. When the time changes, if I click done again, it'll change the done time. Okay, great. 11:15. Great. Mark is not done. It's not done, right? Task, let's give us draw a picture. Let's say I'm a gamer and I need to buy a mouse for my cat maybe that I bought recently. And then clean keyboard. Those are all things that people do. Okay, great. So what is the issue here? We don't have the automatic month, right? So we need to link that month. Link month, one page, tasks. Sorry, one page, and then month, singular. Great. Okay, so there it is. For this, I want it to be July, maybe. Who knows? Okay. July, July, July. I don't understand why it keeps doing that. Because I literally said 2024. Okay. July. This is which one? You wanted to do? Journal. Daily journal. This one really only needs date and maybe mood. Hold it, mood. Done and dusted. Okay, let's get rid of this. No, we don't have to. Okay, then we're gonna go back. Tasks, right? So we have tasks. What are our tasks? Clean keyboard. So we want to know the length of this. So let's see what length is. It is a dot property. Great. Okay, so because we made it this USD, so we're going to do length, and then we want this to be a number that we have, and then we're going to have a little guy like that, and then we're going to have we're going to do filter, going to get our tasks, we're going to get current dot checkbox equals end of input expected. Okay, we're going to do length 0 out of 1. Also, let's say you're feeling, this is just things that you can do, right? Completed progress. And then for this formula, instead of doing this, we're just going to actually divide it. Right? And that's going to give us a number, which is not a dollar. It should be a number. You could do a percent as well. we could have a bar. We could have this 0 out of 1, 0 out of 1. So we did that. We related it to month, and that is done. Next thing, we need to update the formulas. We just updated one formula. Now we need to update formula number 2. This one can be simple as well. We could just do journal entries, and then how many ever journal entries we have, we can do, again, out of, let's say for every month I want to write 30 journal entries. Same thing, you could have number, right? Just say sad. Okay, so we have one journal entry, and then we could do more. We could do mad. Right, and then we could have that. Right, so sad and mad, 2 journal entries. We have 2 journals completed. This, 0 tasks this month. I guess it's nice enough. We're going to do duplication here, pull this down, and I'm going to add in my linked database, have tasks, and then we could do, I guess we could do a chart. Let's do a chart. Wait, this has, I'm not on plus right now. Okay, wait. Nope. Let's do a list as well. Yes, we can do a list. And then we're going to show our little property that we created, that done property, and can also have something like checkbox over here if you prefer that. I'm gonna actually maximize the size on this. Alright, so we can see all the information that we need to. And then this is gonna change to add to tasks, new page, and then we're gonna change the due date to today. And then we're gonna remove this. We don't really want to name that task. Add, instead of expenses, we're gonna add tasks. I'm going to replace with, or add the page that we added, done, and we're going to rename this new task. I kind of like this new UI, the new task. I'm going to open up here, new task. It's going to link to October. This is automatically linked, right? We have that task that was automatically linked to October. 1 task this month, none of them are done. Let's go ahead and mark this as done, and it's done. And finally, let's do journals. Journals I want to do as gallery view. Okay, so I'm going to move this back end down here. This is my daily journal. I need a actual button for adding new ones. And we're going to do journal entry. This one, journal entries, add me. Great. Beautiful. That's everything for this video. Thanks for watching, and I already said all that, so